Welcome to Dear Art Producer, a podcast connecting the photography and video community with art producers. Drawing on her agency experience some years ago, photography agent Heather Elder penned an open letter to art producers discussing the finer points of working with one another. This podcast takes that idea and will introduce you to different art producers, share the stories of their diverse career paths, explore what it means to stay relevant, and examine industry topics such as marketing, estimating, directing, websites, and more.
Hi, welcome to Dear Art Producer. I am your host, Heather Elder, and today we welcome Vice President Executive Art Producer from Energy BBDO in Chicago, Liz Miller Gershfeld. Liz started her career as a PA, casting agent, and talent wrangler before working for a commercial director. Eventually, she moved to the still side, where she's been producing award-winning work for clients like Ocean Spray, Bayer, and SC Johnson for 20 years. I've always admired how articulate and insightful Liz is when she speaks about the industry, so I'm excited to have her as a guest today. Hi, Liz.
Hi, Heather. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. How are you today?
I'm great. How are you?
Excellent. I'm good. We were just chatting about how it's a Monday and how we kind of sometimes feel behind on Monday mornings from everything that accumulated on Friday and over the weekends.
That's right. Mondays sort of feel like a bit of a dumping ground for all of the things that were left undone from the week before. So
absolutely. And I had a total Monday moment with you this morning when I thought our podcast was scheduled for 8:30 this morning, my time, and you told me it wasn't. So I was feeling happy because I got to my desk a lot earlier to get through my to-do list. So thank you.
Happy to give you some hours. Delighted.
Well, Liz, I would love to talk a little bit about where you started and how you got into this business. Sure. Being an art producer is such a unique job that you kind of have to fall into it. And I always find that people, when they share where they came from, it's a really interesting way to start the conversation.
So I think for me, like you said, it's usually a kind of a strange route to become an art producer. And for me, it was as circuitous as for anyone else. I studied journalism in school, and when I was in my last year, the presidential debates of 1992 came to my campus. And I was currently doing an internship at I went to Michigan State, and it was the MSU News Bureau. And I got to do an internship for CBS News TV pool. And the way it used to work was that the different networks would each take the feed for the debate each time. And so that time it was CBS, and I got to work with them as an intern. So I would, let the different newscasters know what time they had to be there, and just generally run errands and be around so many interesting journalists who I had looked up to for so long. I was the proud owner of a very robust all-access pass that was of quite the lanyard to wear as a final-year journalism student. So that was very exciting, and I really caught the bug for production. So that was kind of exciting for me. So when I moved to Chicago, I grew up in Detroit, and Chicago just made sense when I graduated. I didn't know exactly what I was going to do. I took another internship at a place called Raw Producer Center, which was it was a studio that rented equipment for feature films that would come to town, and I got to learn truly the nuts and bolts. I did an internship working in the lighting studio, so I was, dusting lights and learning all the equipment, and I got lent out basically for free on a feature film that was filming at Joliet Prison, which was a maximum security prison. It doesn't exist anymore. And it was a really interesting experience in terms of doing production. I was the second AD, which really meant I was a PA. So I would hand out cigarettes to the prisoners in the prison yard for props and different things like that. And it was crazy.
Wow.
Yeah. And so from there, I started working in the local production community. And I did many different entry-level production jobs and really just learned all aspects of production in every department. And I started working with a director in town who did a series of campaigns for BBDO. At the time, they were called BBDO Chicago. And I got to know people here. And I learned about the role just through conversation of art producer. At the time, it was called an art buyer. And they didn't have one. And in my time in journalism school, and also in my past, I had a strong passion and interest in still photography. And so this just felt like a very, to me, a very exciting way to marry the production that I had been doing for several years with the interest in photography. And they brought me on as a freelancer. And my very first freelance production was working with David LaChapelle. So it was kind of a big project to jump in and very much trial by fire. And I learned a lot. And not too long after that, I was hired. And it was, it's been a great run. And it was a, it's kind of an interesting experience to come into a role where there isn't someone currently doing the role to train you. So it's been a lot of learning by doing.
So it's so interesting, Liz. I'm hearing you talk about all of the production experience that you got before you became what was then called an art buyer. And I'm thinking back to all the other interviews I've done where everybody kind of has, everybody has very much different paths, but they're all similar in that they've touched on different parts of production. And I'm sitting here listening to you talk, and it feels to me like everything you all have been doing has been setting you up for the job that you have today, because that art buyer job has really evolved into what we're now calling art producers, that I think includes so much more production than it ever has when you were an art buyer. And I'm sure when you were an art buyer, you thought you did a lot of production, but what I'm hearing people talk about today is how much more involved, and there is so much more than just choosing a photographer as an art producer. Would you agree with that?
I absolutely agree with that. I think the most important part of any of our roles is to be flexible and to be a flexible thinker. I think that as the media terrain is changing and the way people are consuming media changes, the way we package jobs has to change. I think that it's really, we have to both be a robust producer, but we also have to have an understanding and a sensitivity to our clients' business needs, and those are changing so much.
Let me ask you about that for a minute. We all have talked about the way it used to be and how it was, but I think what's hard for the listeners sometimes to get an understanding of is what are the changes that are happening at the client level. When you're sitting in meetings and you're talking about a new job that's coming up that you're looking for photographers or directors for, what sort of things seem different that the clients are asking for or requiring as part of a production?
first of all, every project has a different set of clients depending on where the work we're going to be creating for that client is going to live. There are clients that have much more of a digital focus. There are clients that are much more of the brand focus. And so the different clients have different perspectives that they're going to approach production. Some clients are very concerned about a price per asset, which is always a hurdle that we have to get over, because we don't bid production, we don't look at production from that perspective. A production, as you know, is it isn't like stock photography. So
Sure.
That's one challenge. One thing that we've been talking about a lot is how the media terrain is evolving. There was this model before that was always on content, and it was a quantity sort of way of thinking about filling digital cadence, where people would have their daily or weekly or monthly social media updates that we had to make sure we had content to fill. But Facebook has recently done a number of studies that is showing that actually consumer attention is it's more productive and effective to focus on fewer, higher quality assets that work harder, and that's going to be a more effective model. And so now there's a lot of work being done to educate the buyers of the content we're creating that that's going to be a more effective spend for them, which I think is good news.
I do too. I think that's fantastic to hear. I mean, the idea of returning back at least somewhere on the spectrum towards that hero image again,
that's right,
is really exciting.
I think it's exciting too. And but who knows? Everything changes so quickly that there may be another study that there's going to be a different model that's going to be more productive. So I guess coming back to this need to be very flexible, to be a strong educator. I'd say from a client perspective, there's a lot of education in terms of making sure that people understand that they can't think in terms of cost per asset. We can't think in terms of the media use is the valuation of the work that we're producing. So if it's going to live in a social environment, it should be a less expensive shoot. That's a real challenge for us. Do
you have clients or let me rephrase that, the clients who are thinking that, right? They think that social, if it's being used for social, it should be a less expensive production.
Yeah.
Do you think that those clients, and they don't have to be your clients, we could just be talking in general, do you think those clients are just thinking that you can hire some, Instagram kind of photographer, not necessarily an influencer, but, some sort of Instagram, somebody who's good at shooting that way, and get it done for less? Or do you think they value that space less, so therefore they think they should be charged less for the usage, for example?
I think that it's a matter of clients are under a lot of pressure to lower their costs, and I don't think they're trying to fill in the solutions, but I think they're saying you need to find solutions. And so I think that there's a lot of pressure internally and externally to find find these solutions. I hear words like nimble and efficiency being almost weaponized. It's an expectation. A good producer is going to find ways to be nimble and efficient. And if you can't, there's going to be a producer who will. And so it's kind of a tough environment from that perspective.
Well, and I think from the photographer, director perspective as well, there's a lot of photographers and directors out there who can and will do it for less. So it is a hard time for people when you're trying to be nimble and resourceful and efficient, all of those buzzwords. I think it's really hard because if you want to make sure you're giving the quality that is expected from the work they see on your website or in your portfolio, and for the experiences that they may have had with you already, sometimes it's hard to be the most efficient or the most nimble person.
I agree. I think that first creative conversation and then robust follow-up conversations are absolutely critical, because that's where you really drill down into those sorts of details of, okay, here's the ask. It's a big ask. We're asking for it for not so much. What's possible? What am I getting? What am I not getting with this? And, it can't all come out in the creative conversation, but it needs to come out in those bidding days. Those days are everybody has got to be very specific about what promises are being made. And because then that's communicated to an entire team and everyone is held to it.
So when you choose 3 photographers for your project, are you trying to choose 3 photographers that are all in the same level in terms of where you think their costs would come in? Or would you sometimes choose 3 different photographers, mostly because you're choosing from their look, and it doesn't matter to you if one is going to be a lot less money than the other? Or do you try and keep the level field, the field level? Or is it really just driven by the work you think you're going to get or the look?
Well, for most projects, it's on the look and feel of the artist and their body of work. And I typically, our budgets are tight enough that we're going to be very transparent to all 3 photographers. Here's the number, which probably can't be accomplished, but is the number we're trying to hit. How would you solve this problem? A hope is always that somebody's going to come back and say, here is very specific architecture around what you can do for your budget, and here is what the whole thing is going to cost. So we typically go back with a couple budgets from each person. That seems to be typical these days. And you hope that it can be a well enough facilitated conversation creatively that that the photographer and their producer understand our priorities. They dig into what our needs and interests are so that they can sort of help us find the hierarchy. So you don't have enough money. Here's what you're asking for. Here's what we can give you. And I think it's giving you what you really need. But if you... I like when that situation happens, Yeah. I mean, I feel like not many people have enough money nowadays for what they're asking. And we are really good at figuring out, getting you the most you can get for the quality you would expect for that amount of money. So if someone does come to me and say, look, I have $150,000 and this is everything we need to shoot, I would love to give them a bid for $150,000 and show them what we can do for that. And then a bid for maybe $200,000 to show them what it would really take to get it done. And then let them be the ones to
ask for more money or engage more with the process to help bring the cost, just then I feel like we're really being able to showcase our talents and show that we can understand the job.
Absolutely. That's typically what I find to be the most, and I never feel like it is productive for me, the producer, to tell a client team that the budget is not going to suffice. I much rather prefer to have the data of the estimates, tell them what is possible for that amount of money, and then if the priority is to get everything that is being requested, then we have an informed understanding of what it's going to take to get that. And conversely, I typically try to have a conversation before we go into the bidding process to understand, is the priority doing this very inexpensively, or is the priority the quality of the work, or is it getting the most assets for the money? Because those are sort of three different approaches.
That's really great to hear, Liz, because I just feel like as a rep, if someone were to tell me, Heather, this client just really is interested in the bottom line, that is what's going to drive them, then I'm going to approach it a little bit differently than if it were, no, Heather, they want quality, they want to get it done right, they want time on set for approvals, they want a day for a fitting, all of that, then I know that too.
That's right. I mean, it's a dynamic process and it's a creative process. So it really works better, I think, when you can collaborate with people. And then also that collaboration is informative about what the production process is going to go like as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I agree. And I really appreciate the relationships that I have with, with the producers who do take the time and really engage with us in the process. Because there's a lot of times with, especially with smaller agencies or quicker projects where we don't know the people, I'll get shot an email like, hey, what's it going to cost for Joe Smith to shoot 3 shots in one day on location with 2 talent? And you're just like, oh my God, I know nothing about your job. Yeah. I can't help you. I can't get you what you need very easily. But to hear you talk about how important it is for you to take the time to have those conversations, and that process will inform what the ultimate production will be like, that tells me that I have another chance to shine. And if your experience with us bidding is positive and we are fulfilling all of those production items that you are concerned about and answering all those questions, you're going to be more likely to choose our photographer if we can get our numbers to work out.
Sure, that's right.
But the people who kind of want to skip to the bottom line and just get me the numbers, I don't have time to talk or share. I don't have a lot of information to share. Those projects most of the time don't even end up happening. And, a lot of times aren't a means to an end. And it's unfortunate.
Well, and that also informs you about how the collaboration process is going.
Absolutely.
So.
Absolutely. But I'm on the client service part of things. So I always want to provide and be helpful.
Of course.
Well, what about treatments? Do you ask for those a lot, or is it just kind of a given that they're going to be there?
It's interesting. For campaigns where there are certain jobs where it's necessary, and there are certain jobs where it is not. And I mean, like, the whole category of e-commerce projects where it's very much a client's product usage sort of shots. We don't typically need a treatment for something like that. But when there is any sort of creative interpretation that is being, or a build that's being created by a photographer or an artist, or when there's complexity to the production. I think it's an opportunity for a photographer, and it certainly is. I think it's an opportunity for a photographer. I think that it is also a safety measure for a photographer, which I'll explain why. And I just thought of that. And then I think that clients and creatives just expect them anymore. So as an opportunity for a photographer, it like you said, another time to shine. It's absolutely another time to shine, because photographers, some are great on a phone call and others are just much more visual people.
Right.
And
absolutely.
Yeah. And so it gives an opportunity to get the creatives and the clients excited about them, because it really shows what you're thinking about that may not have been expressed in a call. As a protective measure, I think that, to your point, a lot of people go right to the bottom of the estimate. And there's fine print in your estimate, and there's fine print in my purchase order. And I don't want to fine print each other. So
right.
I feel like a treatment is an opportunity to very specifically get into, I am going to cast with still photography. Wait, there's no video casting? What? No, I told you that in my treatment. It's right. A way of kind of protecting yourself by explaining how you're going to. We shoot tethered. We shoot untethered. Wait, why are you shooting like this? I explained it in my treatment. And then for clients, for creatives, and for producers as well, it's nice to understand start to finish how you're going to approach the casting. What's your philosophy? That's a great opportunity to share. My philosophy on casting is, I like to be there, or I have people I trust. It's a great way to showcase your team, because a photographer, any photo shoot is a team sport. And if you have, like a special stylist that you bring in, or I have a team of stylists I work with in different places, or I have great casting people, or, my producer is really seasoned at this sort of location photography, and we have a process, and letting people know, clients come from this, typically from a business background where a process for everything is expected and is articulated. And when their partners also have a process for something, it gives a sense of overall comfort.
Now, let me ask you a question. You've seen so many treatments, I'm sure, and you've just outlined, some things that you like to see in a treatment and the benefits of a treatment. But if you could think back on some of your favorite treatments, what stands out to you? It's probably job specific, I'm sure, but I know also some of them end up being very long. So, what's important to you?
Well, what's important to me is that there's been some mental modeling that has been done, thinking through the project. I think that also there's a sense of accountability. So keeping promises, so things that were brought up in a call. Sometimes, we've all had this experience where sometimes things come up in a phone call and then you never hear about it again. And I work with a lot of very sharp creatives, and they hear those details, and then they want to know what happened to this thing that they said they were going to do, or that thing, or this test that they promised they were going to do, and then it just went away. It's nice to see the things that were mentioned in a call echoed in a treatment. And also, it's nice to get the sense that there was good listening that happened in the call. So things that come up in a call, things that come up in a briefing.
Well, and I would add to that along those lines that I know the treatments are very difficult and time consuming to do. And the more you do them as a photographer, you start to have a bit of a template. Yes. And, I've seen a lot of treatments come across my desk, and I've also been able to see other treatments, which I feel very fortunate to. And I know that the ones that have always stood out to me are the ones that can align themselves with the client's brand and the vision of the creative that's being asked to be executed. So rather insert image here, insert client name here, you're finding a way to draft off of that creative call and not only offer your own ideas, but let people know that you heard what they were talking about.
Absolutely. I mean, to your point, they're time consuming, and two of you are not going to get the job, and that is just the reality. So how do you protect yourself? There's got to be some templating. I think there's got to be a lot of introspection about your philosophies and approaches on different things that are just how a photographer works, that are not specific to a job. And then it does have to be specific. It does have to be about that project in particular. And, also when people reflect on, I've seen this a few times when photographers reflect on the role that a particular brand has played in their life and their personal relationship to that brand, that seems to go over very well.
Well, it's very unique because I'm sure a lot of people don't do that. Right. I'm trying to get my photographers away from, anything they say about themselves. I always use the expression, insert photographer name here. Right? Can anybody else say that about you? Say that about their work? And I think the more competitive the market is, it's really easy to insert photographer name here. It used to be that you'd hired somebody because they are the only ones that could do that. And that's not the case anymore. So you, as photographers, you really have to figure out and dig deep about what it is about you that makes your photography unique. And in particular on a treatment or when you're being considered for a job, what makes your experiences, all the things that make up you as a photographer, what makes those experiences unique to this particular situation. And I think when photographers can do that, it's not an easy thing. It's not like, I used to take this drug, or, I drink ocean spray cranberry juice. It's deeper than that. And when photographers can do that successfully, it sounds very authentic, and it is authentic, and I think it makes them rise to the top.
I agree. I don't think that authenticity that really resonates can be faked. So they do have to do the work of thinking, of the introspection, and of thinking deeply about what someone needs from them and what they could bring.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think that word gets thrown around a lot, because people are looking for Instagram doesn't seem so authentic. So people are looking for authenticity. Yeah. And a lot of people pull it off really well, and incredibly, I'm not saying people are using the word and it's not, but it requires some deep thinking in order to, be considered authentic in especially when you're trying to align your work with a brand. So I think that's important.
Yes, that's a very true point. I mean, it's like just picturing the Venn diagram and thinking about that intersection, but thinking about it in a deep way.
Mm-hmm. Well, we only have a few more minutes, and I'd love to know how artists get your attention. we used to have 100% of your attention, or the photographers did, right? Because I'm guessing that's when you were an art buyer, all you focused on was still photography. Yeah. But now that's different. I think a lot of people are vying for your attention now. What catches your eye? Where are you looking for artists?
Well, what I find to be, and I've said this before in other places, what I find to be the stickiest of all memory sticky makers is a meeting. I always say yes to meetings, typically, if I have time. And there's just nothing more memorable than when you meet with somebody. And then following that is a very regular cadence of reminders of who you are, and continuing the relationship. So once you meet somebody, you know each other. Now I want to see more, and I want to see a little more depth every time. I want more. I want somebody to show me something. Show me something they haven't shown me before. So I personally, I'm very drawn to storytelling, and I love when people are doing stories or have, work that they're taking in a particular direction. So how do you get somebody's attention? Lots of repetition and personal meeting. It seems that's for me. I know maybe.
Yeah, a lot of people say the same thing. Some people quote mailers or like digging around on Instagram, or they'll get an email blast and that'll be the tip of the iceberg, and they'll kind of click around through websites. But I think the things that comes, rises to the surface a lot is this idea of a personal meeting, right, and how important it is, not just for you to know me as the rep, but for you to know the photographer. And the fact that you make time to meet with them is fantastic, and the fact that you say what a crucial part that is in the process, I think is something that every photographer listening should really pay attention to. And when they can get a meeting, it is meaningful.
Well, and I would say, just try to be very, very resourceful in terms of making meetings with people. There are a lot of people outside of the agency world, this of course, who are decision makers in terms of hiring and assigning photography, motion, whatever, all the different mediums. And don't leave a meeting without getting another name and following up and pursuing it. And I guess just it can't be, you just can't take it personally when people can't meet, or if a meeting isn't as successful as you hope it's going to be. It's a bit of a Rorschach, right? I mean, I think it's important to have a point of view in your work, and if your work doesn't resonate with everybody, that probably means that you have a point of view.
Right. It's so true. Well, and you've said so many good things here. One that I want to point out is that not leaving the meeting without another name or following up. And I can't tell you how important that is. From where I sit as a rep, I get lots of emails from other photographers as well. And all of them, I try and look at all of them. I can't reply to all of them, but I do reply to some. And sometimes I tell people, I can't talk now, but I can, call me in 2 weeks, or, I'll be back in the office in a week, or, and so many times those people do not follow up with me. And, there are some that do, and those are the ones that are patient and can actually get a window of time with me. I will pay, I will be there for. So I am always so surprised at how many people don't do that.
I agree. And it's being patient. It's being just relentlessly persistent. And it's also have compassion for the people that you are meeting with, that you're attempting to meet with. For the most part, I don't think people are uncaring jerks. It's just that a lot of work environments are like a triage, and it's really, I can only deal with what's bleeding in front of me.
It's true. It's really true. I find it very hard in my job as well to schedule calls because I have so much that comes across my plate. And if I know I need to talk to you for an hour or so about something, I always, if you're a new photographer and I'm going to want to kind of get into your website and all of that, I would rather schedule it for the end of the day or before I get in, because otherwise I'm distracted by my email and the people that are needing me on an estimate. So I'm kind of at cross purposes here. So I would urge people who are trying to get appointments to recognize that sometimes we're not wanting to meet you. It's just so hard to find the time that we're not going to be uninterrupted.
It's a different headspace, isn't it?
Yes, and it is. And you want to be present for that person. You just, I don't want to say, sure, come in and I'll meet you. And, my phone's ringing, my email's beeping, and, you've wasted your time.
Right.
Well, I think we've covered so many great topics today, Liz. It's always so wonderful to talk to you. I think you've been such a wonderfully strong voice in our industry, and I'm just so honored to have you on the podcast today. So I want to say thank you.
Thank you, Heather. I am delighted you asked me, and that's it. Thank you.
Thanks for listening. In an industry where the rules are always changing, it's helpful to hear from those on the front line. Heather Elder is the visionary behind notesfromarepsjournal.com. Visit her website for industry updates, stunning photography and video, and the artist behind the work.